Hi, my name's Bill Korte. Born and raised at Clyde, Ohio. 60 years old. Been messing with these dogs since I'm about 10 years old, I'm guessing.
Yeah. You want to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name's Duane Kehres. I was born and raised in Clyde, Ohio also. 55 years old. Kind of hung the lead strap up back in 2018, but still got lots of memories with these dogs. They've been pretty darn good to us over the years.
And did you guys know each other like when you were young, or did you meet each other after you were coon hunting?
Oh, I was about 16 years old and I heard about Duane and his father having dogs. So it didn't take me long to look them both up. And then we started hunting together. At that time, I was 16 and Duane was probably what?
I was 12. I remember the day, Bill, I come home on my bike and Bill was sitting in the driveway talking to Dad. I really didn't know who Bill was. And long story short, that's been 43 years ago. And we've created just an outstanding friendship. Dad drug us around with just some old plugs. And we thought we had something, you know. We was glad to have them. You know, coon hides was pretty high priced at that time. And we didn't really know a whole lot about the competition hunts, but we did look up to a lot of the older coon hunters in the area. So we kind of, you know, bothered them, pestered them, begged for rides, and they'd come and take us whenever they could, you know, until they got tired of us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when did you start coon hunting then?
Oh, I was like 10 years old. The first night I knew anything about coon hunting, it was like in the middle of November, and I seen an old station wagon pull up in front of our house. Some guys got out of that station wagon, had lights on their heads, and pretty soon they was getting dogs out of the back of that station wagon. And me and my younger brother, what's going on out there? So we went out there. What are you guys doing? Coon hunting. What's that? Well, go ask your mom if you can go along. So I went in and asked Mom, hey, care if we go coon hunting with the Artie Warnicky? She said, no, sir, you get in here and get your homework done. But when they turned them dogs loose back in the woods behind the house, when I heard them dogs open, it was just, I was just amazed. You could see them shine in the tree, and I heard them shoot a coon out, and I thought, man, I want to do that. So that was the start for me.
Do you remember what breed of dogs that was?
No, I don't know what Artie had
They was
at
some
that
old
time.
old walker
Yeah.
dogs, you know. I'm not sure what they had back in there, you know. Him and his brother, Bob, hunted, Bob and Art, you know, and they was just a lot of white on them back in there. I remember them days, you know. They just, a lot of white on them, but I don't know particularly what breed they were.
Yeah. When did you start then?
Well, Dad, I was thinking about that. Dad used to coon hunt when he was a kid. And when I started growing up, I was probably 8 or 9. He brought this half walker, half black and tan pup home. He started telling stories about it. And, of course, you know, Dad worked a lot. And Mom wasn't going to allow him to spend a lot of money on one. So he got whatever he could. And we just tried to make what we could out of it. But I remember the first time we was along, and he was with some guys, and we had some other local boys around. You know, there was a lot of coon hunters back in the day. And we went, and we was with Bill Girding and Ron Averish, and I think his brother Norm was along. And them dogs treed, I was hooked. I mean, that's all I could think of was, I couldn't get enough of it. And I begged Dad to get something better, and when Bill came around, Dad had just bought a nice started dog, and he taught us a lot about coon hunting. And that's just kind of where we all went with it, you know, and we was young kids, and when we grew up and got into our teenage stage and early 20s, I mean, it couldn't get dark quick enough. That's all we wanted to do.
What were some of the first dogs you guys hunted with then together?
Dad had the old Bill dog. He come out of an old dog trader over there in Indiana, and he was kind of real squally mouth on the ground, but when he come treed, he was just an explosive tree dog. Good chop mouth tree dog. Then it was about shortly thereafter I got me a puppy from him, and I called him Old Buster. Had him till he died, and made him a night champion. You know, back then, it was 3-hour hunts.
Mm-hmm.
And you pull up to an UKC hunt and, you know, you're going to look at 40, 50 dogs. You know, if you got in the top 10 and you brought a trophy home, you had bragging rights.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there was a lot of good dogs, a lot of good guys. But we was kids. We was just learning ourselves,
Yeah.
you know.
So when you first started competition hunting, did anyone show you or explain anything, or you just kind of go and learn as you went?
School of hard knocks, brother. I'm telling you, it was brutal.
Yeah.
You know, 3 hours, you know, you think about it now, they're down to an hour and a half.
Yeah.
You know, 3 hours. I'm telling you, when you got done with that, and I'm going to quote Junior Jackson right here, you felt like you was through a round of double jeopardy.
Yeah.
Because these boys was brutal, you know, for a trophy.
Do you remember how old you guys were when you started competition hunting?
Probably 18, 19.
18, 19.
I was like 14 when I got my feet wet. And my very first coon hunt I went to, I hunted my pup. He was 10 months old, and a good friend of Bill and I's, Ray Carroll, he was sitting down there at the Western Ohio Tree Hound Association. He said, "Oh, son, you don't want to put that pup in that hunt." I said, "I got the real deal. We're going to go for it, you know." Mm-hmm. And I drew old Emmett Brohard with Goose Creek Tack 2. He was big in the blue ticks. And Ray said, "You don't want to hunt with that dog. He's a little rough, you know." I said, "Oh, we'll be fine, you know." And I won that cast. And I was going through some stuff the other day. And sure enough, I didn't run across the picture when I placed in that hunt. And I placed third in it. And Dad wasn't a competition hunter, but he placed fourth in it that night. So it was quite an accomplishment, you know.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Do you have any other stories like that, kind of when you were first getting into it? Any memories you want to share?
Oh, the one that always comes to mind for me is old stylish Clover. Was about, I don't know, 7, 8 months old. I put him in his very first hunt. And I drawed 3 other dogs. We turned them all loose. And I believe old Whitey struck and treed in there, had a coon. The other dogs are split up. We recast them. Go shine them guys' tree. They don't got anything. And I hear Whitey almost out of hearing, but I can hear him treed. And I asked the judge, said, "Can you hear that dog through there?" He listened. He said, "Yeah, I hear a dog through there." I said, "Just tree old Whitey over there." He said, "Bill, are you sure?" I said, "Yes, sir, tree Whitey over there." He said, "There's nothing over there, Bill. It's a fence row, and that's it." I said, "Well, that's him." So we start our walk to that dog. We walked 25 minutes hard. And it don't sound like we're much closer than we was when we started. The judge stopped and he asked me again. He said, "Bill, I want you to listen real hard. Is that pup treat over there?" I listened. "Yes, sir." So we headed over there. Sure enough, it was old Whitey. He's like 7, 8 months old. He's got another coon treed. And I believe he treed one more coon in that cast, and everybody else withdrawed. When he was like 8 months old, he treed 3 coons. The other dogs never treed a coon, I don't believe. But I was just amazed, you know, for his age. He was like an old dog already. Just wanted to be by himself, and when he parked, he had a coon. Yep, he was a freak. Yep.
You know, we was blessed back in the mid-'80s, Clayton, to... Well, most people don't realize the caliber of dogs that we had any opportunity to go hunting any night with. You know, a good friend of ours, old Chuck Smearsall, had old Stylish Queen, and this is kind of where it all started for all of us. And old Queen, you know, pretty nice hound, real nice hound. Chuck had sold her to Gary Brydenbaugh and Ron Baldridge. And they took her to them hunts, and in 1985 they was world champion Walker female in UKC and ACHA. And we got to tag along with old Gary. Gary's a character if you ain't never met him. He's a really good guy. He's a lot of fun to hunt with. He'll put you in places back in the day that, you know, it didn't matter. You know, there could be a farmer out there taking corn off. He said, "I know that guy," and he'd be just driving right beside the combine. We're going back to them woods, you know. I said, "Man, that just kind of blows my mind," you know. So as a kid, you know, you kind of looked up and had fun with those guys. And Gary started breeding old Queen. Bred her different stud dogs, and probably where Bill and I have gotten really tight and formed a good bond was, you know, Gary bred old Queen, old style Lipper, House's Lipper. everybody that, he was hot that time, and Bill ended up with this female he named her Chirpy. And boy, we spent a lot of nights in the woods with old Chirpy, Bill and I. We'd go on second shifts in the summertime so we could hunt all night when it was cooler out. And back then there was no cell phones. We'd just get on the old CB radio and look each other up, but we just, the amount of coons we treated with old Chirpy and listened to her old trail around, big mouth, ball mouth female and stuff, Bill and Chuck were partners on her. And November of '89, they decided they was going to breed old Chirpy. And this is where it all started. They made the trip over to Pennsylvania and bred old Lee Logan's old wild Clover. And that basically started it right then and there. I don't think Chuck nor Bill even kind of realized at that time, I know I didn't, what was going to happen and how the coon dog world was about to change for us. And it created it created a frenzy a little bit, when word started hitting about these pups. They was born January 10th, 1990. And I was kind of in my trashing stages in life, I took a little break, and I remember coming home one night, and I said, I don't know if I should say this on the radio or on the podcast or not, but I come home and I was out all afternoon drinking beer with a bunch of buddies of mine. We had plans to go chase some girls that night. And old Bill was sitting out there along the road, and he had old Whitey tied out there to the tailgate, and he had this female tied there too. And little to be known, I didn't know at the time that me and him was going to become partners on her. And it was my old patch female, was Whitey's litter mate. And him and Dad was going to go coon hunting, and old Bill here, he knew I'd been out all day, and he said, you need to go with us. And he said, you'd probably be better off going with us. I said, I said, as ugly as them old dogs over there, I said, hell, I said, them dogs ain't going to treat no coons. I said, I'm going back uptown. I get showered and cleaned up here, I had other things on my mind. My old dog had just died, so I didn't have nothing. And Bill said, hey, he said, don't be a stranger, get with me. He said, I want to show you this pup. Well, old Patch was down with Mr. Ed Yates in Alabama. That was his pup. And she was just trailing around, wasn't doing nothing like the rest of them was. And he gave her back to Bill. He said, you do whatever you want. He said, I need something, doing something. So later that week, I got to thinking about it. I was at work, and I thought, I probably ought to get with Bill. And I need something to keep me out of the bars, So I called him up, and he said, me and John Idle's going hunting tonight. And he said, well, why don't you all tag along? I said, all right, where do you want me to be? So I go, and these pups are like 13 months old. It's in the spring of the year. I turn around, and Whitey and Sonny, they was the real deal. They was treeing coons all night. Old Patch just trailed over there, and these guys are treeing coons, and I'm thinking, oh boy, here we go. I'm over here, and I go walk over here and pick this female up off the ground for third, fourth, fifth time of the night. Finally, I said, Bill, just leave her in the truck, Let's just go tree coons with these other two. And I remember it like it was yesterday. We was on this old river road, and it was getting pretty close in the morning. We was about hunted all night. John says, Bill, what do you think we ought to do here? He said, let's take these two and put them butt to butt, and let's see what these dogs are going to do, how independent they're going to be, if they're going to break their neck, try to go with each other and pack up. And that's when it made me a believer. I never in my life seen 13-month-old pups and leave and break as hard as they did, and neither one of them ever looked back at each other. It wasn't long. Whitey was struck up in there in this woods, drove a track up in there and come tree. Old Sonny's down there on the river running. He comes up tree. Both had coons. Now Whitey was the type of dog, when you pulled him off a tree, dude, you had to drag him. When you talked about having to pull one off that lumber, he would lay on his side and just paw at the ground and rip and roar, and he couldn't. He was a freak, like Bill said. We got back to the truck, got talking a little bit about the night's hunt. Bill said, "What do you think?" I said, "I'm going to take that dog home, just put her in my truck." He said, "We'll work something out, don't worry." That's just kind of friendship we had back then. Bill and I think a lot alike on dogs. We didn't have to worry about anything. If we got out there in the woods together, he didn't have to ask me permission to get after mine or vice versa. We just did it. We was geared in the same mind frame with these dogs. And, I took old Patch home, put her in the kennel, didn't do much with her there for a little bit. I started sneaking out by myself. And next thing you know, she went to train coons. And old Bill says, "What's this pup doing?" I said, "She trained a few coons." He said, "Really?" So he said, "I'll get with you tonight." We got together and she treated 4 singles that night. Bill said, "How'd you do it?" I said, "Just spent some time with her, So we was pretty blessed, out of that litter, mine was a grand night. Stylish Anna was in that litter. She was absolutely, I'm not trying to take no credit from her. She was an outstanding female. Chuck did a lot with her. Everybody.
Tree dog. Buddy.
Tree dog. She was tree dog. There was another one called, Frost Stylish Sonny that John ended up selling Sonny to Bill Frost and Steve Ratcliffe. And he got hit by a car shortly after they made him grand. And then there was one old A.E. Hathaway down there in Florida, bought the lid and promoted him. And then there was a boy over here, over by Mr. Brian Balls, had just no hide hunter. He just tree coons. Never was in a coon hunt in his life, I don't believe. But,
What'd they call that dog? Do you remember what that dog's name was?
I've been trying to think of what they called him. Bruce had him.
He was about all white, wasn't he?
Bruce passed away. Bruce had him, treated a lot of coons with him. But, I remember Bill trying to get him to go put him in hunts, just put a title on for, that's when PKC in our area started kind of coming to life, And it didn't take long, back in the day when, Whitey was a big deal. And, Bill can tell you, he sold him to John, at that time, John Otto. And John done well with him. I remember John took him to a PKC hunt, got in the finals. Now, when you go to them PKC hunts back in the early 90s, there'd be 50, 60 dogs. A $500 added purse was a big hunt to get to.
Yeah.
And it was a big deal. I saw the numbers this weekend at the Spring Classic, and it about makes me, it's disgusting, because that was a big deal, go to that hunt. There'd be 80 dogs a night hunting there, And I get it. Times have changed, I get it. But John did well with that dog and with old Whitey. But John was never one to go to the coon hunts, was he, Bill? He just wouldn't go, Not too many, about like Bill. They just wanted to coon hunt, And it wasn't long, Doug Jackson was hunting for Pearson Brown at the time, and they'd run Pro Tour. Back in the day, Pro Tours was a real deal. And Doug said, "I need a winner." And he come down and hunted that night, and my memory calls it right. They hunted old Stylish Molly and Whitey together that night, and they treated like 11 coons. And John called us up next day, and he said, "Hey guys," he said, "why don't you come on over here and take some pictures?" And we had 3 litter mates and together in his yard. He said, because Doug just bought him last night. And back in the day, when you sold a dog for $4,000, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, that was something.
Yeah.
And if I ain't mistaken, I don't know. I think John got like around $7,000 for him or something like that.
7,500.
Yeah, So that was a big deal. And that's where Whitey needed to be. He won the Pro Tour. Doug took off running with him. And Doug wasn't much of an open guy, to hunt the open hunts unless it was a big money hunt. But he was strictly Pro Tour man, him and his brother Junior. And, long story short, Doug won the Pro Series with him in 92 and 93, and I believe in 94 he won it with Stylish Molly. But that's where Whitey started getting really recognized. And people started aggravating him about breeding him and stuff, and Doug really is not into the breeding portion of it. He's just a coon hunter. And but he started that whole deal. I think, he was a night champion, and that's to be up for discussion. I put the first place win on him, handled him for John. The dog was older, and Bill was at the hunt. Bill hunted the old Stylish Anna that night for Chuck. And I come in, and I think I had like 4.25 or something like that. Another boy come in, had 4.50, but he didn't sign a scorecard. And he did sign it where he judged the cast. And I tell you who it was Mr. Barry Hempy. And Barry and I always got along in them hunts. You know, he's a lot of fun. And I was like, they come and got me and said, you know, hey, he didn't sign a scorecard, you know, and we're going to award you a first place win. So Bill and I, we hunted our way home. That was down in Sydney, Ohio. Bill and I hunted our way back home. Went and got breakfast that morning, got John up, and said, well, got that done for you. Years later, then, when Doug started breeding him, people started questioning, because basically word got out that UKC overruled that hunt and said, well, we'll, you know, since he signed as a judge, we'll accept that. But they never took the first place win away from Whitey. Now, Whitey's retired now, and he's breeding him a bunch, and I don't know, was it fair to pull the title at that time? It's up for discussion, whoever you talk to, but that's why he ended up showing as a PR dog at the end of his breeding days. Mm-hmm. But Whitey did a lot for people. Some people in the eastern part of the country, you know, over in Pennsylvania, didn't like his style. You know, they liked the old Clover stuff that they had. Mm-hmm. Whitey was a freak. You know, that whole litter was a freak of nature. But you know what they really did. You know, he got to reproducing. Local boys started using him. You know, Fred Bodenberg's got a, you know, just no good old friend of mine and Bill's, and he's brought him into that program with his old house-bred females, and they worked. You know, it worked out good, and you still see that stuff. It might be watered down as it's been many
30 years ago.
It's going to happen.
But you know, guys still want to hear the story. They want some of it. I think where we wanted so much more of it, where we probably made the mistake, and I'll admit it, as an adult, I was breeding stuff. I was doing half brothers, sister crosses, uncle to niece. I'm trying to find this to keep what we got.
Yeah.
And it really didn't. It took us many trials and tribulations that it didn't work. And as funny as it sounds, you know, these dogs was notorious for having coons over their heads. And they was trailing around dogs. Summertime, they weren't much to listen to. They'd get out in them bean fields and trail around. You know, that we got more fun out of them when the leaves come off, didn't we, Bill? I mean,
oh, yeah. But even then, Duane, you look back to today's dogs, to what them dogs were back in that day. Them dogs would get them coons out in that bean field. Now, they may take them 20 minutes, a half hour, but they'd get them coons out of them beans.
Absolutely. Track dogs.
I ain't had one in years that could get one out of them beans like them dogs could back in the day.
Yeah. I mean, they'd trail out in them 100-acre bean fields, and, you know, hey, don't get me wrong, we had to go out there and scoop them up sometimes, you know. But they could move them. They could get them out of there.
Oh, they'd come out of them bean fields, and their eyes would just be
bloody.
All blood. And
no hair.
No hair around their eyes where they'd been running down through them beans trying to get them coons, man. It was...
But that was their thing, you know. They had coons. When they parked, some of them weren't the most nicest tree dogs to listen to. They was loud, screaming, squalling. You'd think something's being beat to death in there. But they'd have them coons, you know. And then Sackett Jr. started getting real hot, and he did. A lot of people like that stuff, but I just, you know, I didn't want to put none of that in with it at the time. I was just concentrating on what we had, and Bill did the same thing, and so did Fred, and, you know, the local boys that was trying the stuff. Some of them wouldn't breed to him because he's just too ugly. You know, they weren't going to, you know, some of them got, no, I don't want none of that stuff, you know, because they weren't the prettiest things, but you didn't know what color they were when they was sitting in there a mile trees, you know.
That's what I always said.
You know, and we
he
sitting
looks
in
a
there,
lot prettier when he's in there 900 with a coon over his head.
Yeah, you know, and we didn't have Garmins back then. We had the old beeps, you know. We knew about what direction they'd be, and but it's sure enough, you know, it was a lot of fun back in them days, and you know, he started reproducing around here, and old stylish little man came along, and he did his part in the hunts, did his part in the breeding program. He had a litter mate. Chris Saunders had. Stylish Jenks was a good dog too. You know, little man actually was kind of my pup, and I had a litter of pups at the time, and Bill said, hey, he said, Gary said, you got a name on a pup? And I said, if you want that pup, go ahead and get it. You know, Patch was on puppies or something at the time. And actually, Dad and Bill was hunting him the night he injured that back leg when he was caught in the fence, I believe, wasn't it, Bill?
We're not real sure what happened to him, but we're guessing that's what happened. He probably got hung in the fence and messed up his hind hip.
Yeah. But it didn't bother him. I mean, he'd drag it around, you know, but he'd treat a lot of coons, and then I used him in my program, and then, just how the generations of those dogs reproduced. I had the old stride dog. He was crazy. He liked to run deer once in a while. He was buck wild. I mean, but he was the extreme of a big hunting dog at that time was for the old beep beeps. I mean, he would blow through there. He'd run a little speed beef and drop off and have a coon somewhere. You couldn't break him. We had him bent, but you couldn't break him. I mean, but that dog had a coon when he got to him, and I studied him out for a little bit, bred a handful of females, but then he reproduced them, and then Bill had the old fugly dog at that time, and he's done more than his share. Fugly was we never would have guessed he was going to reproduce like he did, but he's done some good reproduce some nice ones. And then I had the old Gatorade dog that was gold champion and stuff off of stride. So the generations of them just kept going, and it worked for us. But it don't work for some.
Do you want to talk about Chirpy a little bit? Kind of back up as far, because Chirpy and what was the...
Stylish Lipper, Stylish Babe, all litter mates.
Okay.
So, how that all went, Chuck had Babe. She started running and training when she was about 6 months old, 5-6 months old, I believe. Gary had Chirpy and had Stylish Lipper over there at his house. Stylish Lipper was running training at about 9 months old.
You remember what they called him? Remember?
High voltage gunner.
We called him High Voltage Gunner.
Yeah.
We were standing there by the power plant that night, and he rolled up in their tree. John says, what do you think I'll call that pup? I looked over and I seen that high voltage. He said, danger, high voltage. I said, I tell you what, the way he come on that tree in there, I'd call him High Voltage Gunner. Yeah.
Anyway, Chirpy was, she wasn't treeing yet. She was like 11 months old when I went over to go hunting with Gary. She run her first track that night, and I ended up buying her, bringing her home, started working with her. So we done some winning with Chirpy. Like Duane said earlier, I never was one much to go to the hunts. I'd rather just go coon hunting.
No.
But I don't know, she won high scoring female at Southeast Trimming Walker Days, won Red Bone Days. She is a Grand Night champion. She was in the not the finals, but the top 100 of the UKC World Hunt.
Gold champion, PKC.
She's a gold champion. A lot of that David Vining and his father, Albert Vining, did a lot of winning with Chirpy and
down in Alabama.
Yeah. So, yes, I'd like to have another Chirpy.
Yeah, we would. Back in the day, they kind of had like old Chirpy. Hey, this ain't all been peaches and cream. I just tell you like it is. Bill and I many a night sat in that truck with the heater on, thinking, we got to be to work to a couple hours. We got them out there just trailing around, and like Chirpy, she'd like to run a gray fox. And this was, you had to pull out them old Tritronics, back in the day. Them antennas would reach to the moon, trying to get them slowed down. And my old patch female was the same way. She liked them fox. You couldn't break them off of them, They'd get in that trailing mode, or we'd do some of the wrong stuff, and they'd go into that hiding mode, when we thought we knew more than what they did, and we'd have to go track them down, just so we could hit the time clock here, But lots of good memories with them, Sure enough.
Was there anything you guys found common as far as getting them started? You just take them to the woods and hunt them, or?
Yeah, I mean that's with about any pup. They're all different, right? You just got to find what makes them snap where they're wanting to go tree a coon, right?
Yeah.
They'll do it when they're ready.
Yeah, absolutely.
With that line of dogs, for example, Whitey and Sonny and all of them was treeing coons 6-7 months old, and Mr. Ed Yates, he's passed away now, but when he sent Patch, I believe her original name was Rose, but he sent her back up to Bill, and he said she just goes hunting and she trails and she's not making trees. You know, she was like 14 months old before she started treeing coons. And when she came on like a house wildfire. I mean, she was treeing coons, you know, but she was a late starter, late bloomer. She didn't reproduce real well. Maybe I was doing some wrong things, you know, like Anna reproduced. That was just an outstanding reproducing female, like old Queen was. Mine just didn't reproduce, you know, that well. I think a couple grand nights, couple night champions, but you know, and I bred her quite often, trying to find the secret to success with it, and it just wasn't going to be in there, you know.
Yeah.
She was sure enough to treat a lot of coons.
What was the score she scored when she won during Walker days?
1,100 plus.
1,100.
And you know, Bill come over, and Bill and I was partners. That's a little story about that. You know, we just kind of was partners on it in the fall before Walker days. The Defiance Coon Hunters Club always had the Ohio State Championship, and that was a big deal. I mean, you couldn't wait for that first weekend in October. You know, it was a 2-night hunt, and I've always got a piece of it. And I hunted there, and I scored 450, I think it was, and placed 4th in it. You know, I thought, well, I was feeling pretty good, and I just coon hunted her all winter. And in the spring, I told Bill, I said, I'm going to go hunt Walker days. And what do you think? And he had other dogs, and I bred her in the meantime through that winter. I bred old Patch Stylish Slipper. And I thought, we're going to throw a little more Queen in here and see what happens. And she had some puppies, and I asked Bill, I said, Bill, I said, how about, I said, nothing against you, man. I said, you know, I love you like a brother, but can I own all of her? And, you know, he was busy with Whitey and different things, and he said, I said, and if it's going to cause any issues, you know, we'll just keep it like it is, you know. He said, no, he said, if you want her all, he said, I'll sell her all of you. So we come up with the price, and to be honest with you, I can't remember. Bill might know. I don't remember the price.
Wasn't near enough, I promise you.
Yeah, probably not. But, you know, we're still here 43, you know, we're still here all these years later to talk about it, laugh about it. But he come over to Walker days, and on Friday night, weather was crappy. Guy put us in little rabbit holes, you know, and we'd tree a coon and we'd tree a blank. We all minused out. And that just blew my mind, because that wasn't Patch's style to just tree a blank, you know. The night before we went, Bill and I hunted. She treated 7 singles. And he said, brother, he said, if you get the right breaks, he said, you got her looking right. And on Saturday night, Bill came over, and I had to drop some puppies off there and deliver them. And I had that money for him, and I paid him. And he goes, I'm just going to walk along with you that night. And it wasn't shortly, you know, we had good cast going on, and I was sitting, I think, with like 650 or something like that, and the other dogs didn't have a coon treat. And they just all quit. And I treated 2 more coons, you know, and had 1,100 plus. And we was driving back to the fairgrounds, and Bill said, you know what you might have just done? I said, no, I really didn't, you know. I said, won my cast. He said, you might have just won Walker days. I said, I said, you think? And he said, yeah, I believe so. So we went back to the hotel, and Chuck was staying with us, and he had Anna. He didn't do no good. Bill went in there and said, you might as well get up, you know. We're going to get her picture taken. He said, you guys, he said, you've been drinking? He said, what's going on? He said, you guys are up no good. He said, no. He said, Duane just ripped off a big score on him. He said, now, if I get up and get dressed and you guys are messing with me, he said, we're going to have some issues. So we laughed, went down in there, and sure enough, I didn't have it. I didn't know at the time. I had enough for first place registered. Another guy come in, and I know his name, and I'm not going to say his name just to keep peace and stuff, but I like the guy. And he's pretty ornery. And he come in and had 12 something. He was laughing. Well, it wasn't long they got caught up to him. The time wasn't adding up, and they pulled his scores. But I didn't know that at that particular time. They had awarded him the win. I got home, and I was a high-scoring female and first place registered. And we was having a little adult beverages that morning, kind of partying about it and feeling pretty good about it. And I get a phone call about noon, and the guy says, hey, we pulled that score from that other guy. He said, you're the overall high-scoring dog and winner of 1992 Walker days. So that kind of really put me on fire, created a monster that they never knew, because I couldn't wait to get to a coon hunt on Thursday, Friday, Saturday nights,
Yeah.
I enjoyed them. I liked getting in the mix of it with them.
And he even quit drinking beer to go coon hunting, when it used to be the other way around.
Yeah, yes sir, yes sir, yeah. Oh, Patch and Whitey, they done a lot of good for me,
Yeah.
Sure enough did.
You mentioned that dog was about 14 months old before it started treeing. It would track a lot, you said, though.
Yes.
Is there anything that you did, or was it just experience and time in the woods?
I tell you what I figured out pretty quick. We don't have big patches of timber,
Yeah.
in our area here, but we got lots of coons. If a dog wants the opportunity to tree coons and start quick, they can. I was going to bigger sections and walking around, and I got to thinking about it a little bit, and anybody that knows me knows I would overthink these dogs. I made a job out of it. I mean, I just really, it just consumed me, and I said I got to do something different here. So I went to this little woods. I never really coon hunted it before, but I thought, it looks like a good little place to put a pup. So I started thinking about a 5 and 6 month old pup, and she would leave you like she was late for work. She rolls up in there and she strikes and she comes around, and I seen this coon sitting up along the edge, and she come in there and she hit up on that tree, and I just eased in there a little bit with the light off. She hit that tree a couple of times. Finally, when she come in there the third time, I made her stay right there, and I rewarded her, and went back to the truck, and I thought, man, maybe I ought to just go home. This is the first one she's treed. She's 14 months old. I said, no, we're going to do it again. So we went down the road just a little ways, and I put her in another little patch. She rolls right up in there and just runs a little short track, comes treed, stayed treed. I got back in the truck, and I said, we're going to have to go in there and reward this one too. So we went in there and gave her a little treat, and that was it. It was just me and her then, and I didn't say nothing to Bill for like a week or two. And I knew he was thinking, what's this dude doing? What's he doing with this dog? Because, all the other ones are doing good. And sure enough, then I got a hold of him one night, and I said, hey, you need to go see this. He couldn't believe it. He's like, my God, she just rolled up in there, like I said earlier, she treated 4 singles that night, and he says, we might have something here. I said, we might.
Yeah.
It takes a little more patience with a trailing type dog, right? You just gotta keep going till that switch goes off, and they realize them coons go up that tree.
Mm-hmm.
Once they start treeing, the good thing about a trailing dog is you're gonna look at a coon because they run him right in there. you know that coon's gonna be up there, right? I'd much sooner have a trailing dog that will tree than a tree dog that will trail.
Absolutely.
That's always been what I look for. I'd rather a pup start out trailing, not making no trees, and then the treeing come later, than one start making trees and not having anything to go in there. Because them don't really change a lot, I don't think. You take a trailing type dog with age, and the more time he spends at it, he's going to get better at it. And that percentage of having them coons in the tree is going to be way higher, in my opinion.
You're absolutely right, Bill.
Yeah.
You sure enough are.
That's why I like that kind of dog, a trailing type dog. A lot of people don't. A lot of people will say, I don't want to know where that coon's been. I want to know where he is right now. But to me, that's part of the enjoyment for me, is to listen to that dog strike a track that he can't hardly run. And you can tell 5 minutes later, hey, that track's getting better. Pretty soon he's got that thing up and running where he just about sounds like he's going to catch it and then come treed. To me, that you get to see some dog work. You get to listen to that dog run.
Yeah.
And you can watch from night to night on a dog like that, a pup, as their tracking ability improves, how they improve.
Yeah.
And to me, to watch that from point A to point B, from 6 months old to a 2-year-old dog, is what drives me to go.
Yeah.
I just enjoy it. I've always said, a lot of people ask about them young dogs, and And I believe I've always told people, one man, one truck, one dog, and one gun.
Yep.
Go into hiding
That's what,
and get that foundation on that young dog. And then you can hunt them too much by themselves, too.
because them dogs got a little jealous
Right.
streak in them. You
Absolutely.
Know, at that time, they sure enough did.
I think about 70-30. 70% by themselves and 30% with dogs. And you want a combination of dogs that's better than them, that pushes them to try to keep up. And you want to put them with dogs that don't know anything. Put a pup with them, don't know nothing. And make him do all the work. And make him forget about that other dog even being out there with him, right?
Yeah.
So it's what everybody chooses to do, right?
Yeah.
And, you're right on. Everybody back in the day would know when Bill or Duane had something because we'd be going in hiding, as he said.
Yeah.
It wasn't that we was being unsociable or whatnot. We had
Work to do.
We had work to do. Yeah. And what Bill was saying about them dogs running them tracks into them trees, when you walked away, now I know things are different nowadays, and we all get older and we have to accept change. I don't accept change real well. These dogs nowadays, before I stepped away from it in 2018, I started seeing a big change in these dogs, what these younger generation guys are calling track dogs and stuff. Track dogs, they're running ghosts through the countryside, getting struck for 100, pushing dogs up through there. I get it, when you got 100 strike, you can put them dogs on that paper where you want to be, but that's not Bill or I's style of dog in any shape or form. We want a dog that runs a track in there, has a coon. And if we can't find that coon, now we didn't have thermals, I didn't, but if you didn't see coon eyes, you walked away and I felt as if I didn't do my job because I know that dog had a coon tree.
Mm-hmm.
It's different nowadays. These guys are making trees and ain't got stuff in them. That didn't work for us back in the day.
Yeah. Well, and it's the whole thing about competition hunts. You're striking your dog because it's opening on a coon track.
Right.
That's what is supposed to be happening, not
Right.
just barking just to bark.
Right.
And you're out there to track, strike, and tree a coon, not bark at something because there's other dogs barking and then just tree to get
Right.
circle points.
Yes.
So,
I touched on it a little bit ago, where in the summertime these dogs might not be so much fun to listen to, but they would tree coons.
yeah.
I had more fun. I found out that man could tree a lot of coons in January and February. As a young kid. And I'll just, take it one step further. Bill's old fugly dog, numerous times, these dogs these dogs weren't layup dogs. They weren't going to go in there and swallow up a tree and have a coon balled up in there sleeping. But I will tell you this, and I've seen it on numerous occasions, and a lot of guys seen it. The old fugly dog brought out the old track dog in a lot of them. And he'd go in there, I'm talking dead of winter, frost thick on the ground, and trail a coon and go up in there and come tree and have that coon balled up in there sleeping. Numerous nights we've seen it.
Tree coons the other dog couldn't open on.
Dogs didn't even know that. There's other dogs didn't. And I'm talking not just going there and treeing a layup. I'm talking running a track that's been frosted over.
Right.
And have them coons. That to me is a sign of just good dog work, good breeding. You got to keep with that stuff. It's hard to get away from.
Yeah. I don't know. My opinion, if you get further away from that, you just get more problems. Because if they're not able to do that, and if you hunt year round, it's not going to be like what it's going to be here in a few weeks where there's 10 coon every 10 yards. Like you said, January, February, you have to have a dog that can do that.
Right.
Yep. I got some old videos of them dogs, when it's snowing and blowing and snowmobiles driving, riding, when we used to get snow.
Yeah.
I got them out there. I always carried a camera with me and a little video something. Not as well as professional as you do, but it's been a long time ago.
Yeah, it was a while ago.
So we did what we could do back in the day, and I still pull them out once in a while and laugh and giggle a little bit about it. But, you still get to, see them old dogs in action when it was just nasty out.
Yeah, when the conditions are bad, that's when you wanted to break them out, right?
Yeah.
they're going to tree them coons. But now when these kittens get on the ground, that other style dog we were talking about will make you look silly, because that dog will tree 3 or 4 coons along the face of that woods while you're out in that bean field or whatever trailing.
Yep.
And you did not want to get into a coon treeing contest with them dogs and think you was going to win a bunch of casts, because you weren't. If you could tree 2 or 3 coons in that cast, you got a good chance of winning. But if they tree 6, 7, 8 coons in there, you're probably
beat.
not.
You're beat.
No, because you're going to be off over here somewhere, and they're going to tree 2 or 3 coons right here along the face of that woods, and you're just beat.
You know, and up till that point, you know, before Whitey come around, you basically, when you went with your buddies, you was pulling them off the same tree. You know, there was a lot of that. You wanted them up in there. They was on that same tree. When Chirpy, I guess, you know, Chirpy come around, and, you know, old Stylish Thunder Girl, that was another great female around here that was bred to Clover, and that's where Stylish Little Man come from, and Jinx and all them. But, you know, that's when you started getting the more independence in them dogs, you know. You were, hey, I'll meet you at the truck, you know. Well, the conversation's going to be when we turn them loose. I'll get caught up on the conversation we get back, because I'm going over here to get mine, you know.
And it's hard to tell nowadays if dogs are really that much more independent, because I can't think of a single person that I have met or hunted with that when they're hunting a young dog, part of their progress or process isn't setting them up to cover another dog, and they train them before they even really get the opportunity to.
Yeah.
So, I mean, everyone thinks they have naturally independent dogs, but the training process of them even putting them with other dogs, they don't even let them get to that point to even see it a lot of times, which, I mean, it's good for them. I mean, if they don't have to worry, it's kind of proactive in that situation. We don't have to worry about it down the road. But it's hard to say that you have truly naturally independent dogs when you first put them with dogs and they don't even have a chance to show you if they're independent or not. But
I believe if the dogs strike together, them dogs should tree together, right? Now, if this dog is over here running a track and mine's over here running a track and this one trees, I don't want mine quit that track, come over here and cover this one. I will get after one for that.
Right.
But if they strike together, them dogs should tree together. A lot of times, one or the other gets treed nowadays. Who's ever second on that tree is not going to stay there. He's going to go somewhere else because he's been trained that way, right?
Man-made.
Yep.
You know, and I've seen a lot of them like that too. You know, they go in there and set them up, just sitting in there, hiding in the bushes, waiting for one to cover. You know, but not so much here with them dogs. You know.
Yeah.
Well, it's almost to a fault. I mean, you go to them hunts now. I mean, you see times when them dogs probably should treat together, but they don't.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And like you said, it's different if they're 800 yards apart and your dog starts treeing, and you could look at them on the tracker and they just beeline right. That's different.
Yeah.
But I'm with you. Like, if you, especially a lot of times, the first time you cut them loose, if there's a hot coon right there in front of them, I mean, there's nothing wrong with going in there.
Right.
Clayton Stark here, getting ready to take the dogs to the woods tonight using the Dogter Pathfinder 2 GPS tracking system.